are back. That is Tone Shields. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports State, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. If you could hit the like button, we would appreciate it, friends. All right, Tone. So the Sixers return home and get right back on the winning side of this thing. They took care of the Bulls. Now, the final score was 110-97. It was nowhere near that close. There was a lot of garbage time that made that look a little bit more respectable than it was. Joining us right now to discuss all things Sixers. He does an awesome job covering the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. You can follow him on Twitter/X at Pompey on Sixers and look for his work at Inquirer.com. Keith, good to see you, man. How you doing? Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year to y'all, man. How you been?
Keith, good, man. Really good. Yeah. Good to see you back, bud. Good to see you back. How was that trip? That was a pretty long trip. You guys were
it was cool. You know, it was a little disappointing because you wanted Embiid to play, right? You wanted to see what he could do against certain teams, but I also felt like it was a good trip because we learned something about certain players. You know what I mean? So, you know,
tell me who are the guys we learned some things about?
You know what? The one thing is, like, we always talked about Marcus Morris before, right? And I felt like I saw different things from him. Like, you know, he didn't really play particularly well in that Miami game. But I felt like, you know, he lives down in that Miami area, and I felt like he was playing Santa the night before with his kids, right? Or that night. But I felt like in the Orlando game, you know, we all know him as a shooter, and we know what he could do. But that Orlando game, they basically ran a lot of their offense from him at the nail. And I was impressed by what I saw from him. Then the following game in Houston, you know, he showed the clutch gene. You know, in that fourth quarter, he ended up with 15 points in the game. He scored 10 of those points in the fourth. And he had a three that gave him a lead early. Then he came back with a 4-point play. He grabbed the rebound with 1.8 seconds left, defensive rebound, and scored the final point of the game. So I think we learned a lot about him. We also learned what roles are going to be. So if you look at Robert Covington, you look at Daniel House when he plays, they're essentially going to be energy guys running up and down the floor, playing junk defense if that, you know, if you see it, but also guys who are, you know, just giving them sprints, just playing energy. So I think we learned a lot about what they want to do. And the one thing is, I felt like Maxey finally stepped up without Embiid. You know, now, you know, he stepped up. Now, when they played against New Orleans, he had 30-something points. But if we're going to be real, it was one of those things where New Orleans took their starters out and the Sixers went on a run. It was kind of like last night with Chicago. They made it closer than what it was. But to me, he struggled in Miami. He was the man in New Orleans. He had 42 points against Houston. So those are the things that my takeaways from that trip.
You know, Keith, thanks again for coming onto the platform as always. You know, you mentioned how, you know, you're beginning to see these roles being carved out, especially what you noticed over the road trip. You've covered this game for a long time. In your experience, how long does it typically take an NBA team to essentially establish the concrete roles of the players on the team? And when it comes to this Philadelphia 76ers team, have you seen them begin to carve out their roles quicker than Sixers teams you've covered in the past?
I have, yeah. And it typically takes a long time, especially when you factor in that a team like this doesn't have a training camp with the players that they brought in, right? But I think it's carved out quicker than normal, and it's starting to be carved out now quicker than normal when you factor in the injuries they had too. So they didn't have a lot of guys there. But when you look at it, a lot of these guys played ball together before, whether it was with the Clippers, whether it was with the Houston Rockets, whether it was with Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these guys know something. And something that people really don't know is that Marcus Morris, you know, Mook, they call him in Philly, and Tobias basically grew up together. They played on AAU teams together in the summertime. So they've known each other since they were teenagers. So I think that what we're seeing is that, you know, you have a good coaching staff that are allowing these guys to do things that they did before while they were together. And that's the reason why you're seeing them able to go out there and excel together. That's why, you know, Batum, like, he always knows how to get open. Marcus Morris knows how to get open. You know, Patrick Beverly knows where to find certain people at. And Tobias is now being a little bit more aggressive. You know, I think that when you have a lot of veterans who communicate and talk as much as they do and hang out together, like, I think that this is part of the reason why they're able to carve out these roles and why they're playing well together.
Keith, they're off to a really good start. If there's one thing that you could say Nick Nurse has done that you point at and say, man, this is really a difference maker, or this is what has stood out to me thus far?
You know, it's two things. Well, the one thing is, and it's something that I think is a little bit underrated, right? I think that Nick Nurse's ability to listen to his guys in the heat of the game and say, okay, let's try it. You know what I mean? Like, and again, you know, you think it happens more often than not, but it doesn't. Like, from what players are telling me, they go up to him and say, hey, look, this ain't really working. Or, hey, look, can we consider doing this? We think it's going to work. And Nick is like, okay, go ahead, try it out.
Like, that sounds like common sense, though, don't it, Keith? It sounds like common sense, but common sense ain't common, right?
Common sense isn't so common.
Common sense don't really work in this league, bro. I mean, like, the more you think it would, it doesn't, because, you know, some people start saying, oh, nah, I see what I see. But it takes a smart, you know, look, man, Nick Nurse is a doctor in, like, education, right? You know, he has his doctorate, right? Well, sometimes they say the real smart people keep it simple sometimes, right? Like, keep it simple, stupid, and that's what he does. But look, prime example, when they were playing in Houston, you were like, at 1 minute, these guys were in zone. And then the next minute, the players are looking like, no, we got to do this. Nick Nurse allows that to happen. You know what I mean? Like, they were switching up the defense on the fly because of, you know, they're veterans, they know stuff. And to me, that's a sign of a smart coach, man. Like, let's keep it real. If you're a coach and you, like, let's change it to football. If you got the best running back in the league, are you going to run a spread offense and try to go deep, or are you going to give the running back the ball? And I think Nick Nurse is the type of guy, he sees what's going on, and he's allowing these guys to excel and do what they have to do.
Doug Peterson in the Super Bowl, right? Hey, let's go with the Philly. Boom. All right, do it. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, that kind of thinking is missing right now with the Philadelphia Eagles. But I digress. You know, I look at this team, right, and I can't, you know, in years past, I feel like I've been able to really carve out what their ceiling is. This year, I'm having a hard time figuring out what this team's ceiling is, especially
that's
when
a good
it comes
thing.
And by the way, like Rob said, I think that's a good thing. I have no idea what this team's ceiling is. It's a great thing, but it's also scary as well. When you look at this team, and then you think about the other contenders in the conference, right? Milwaukee and Boston, and then you even in you guys got me. I think I lost you for a second.
I got you.
But anyway, you think about the other contenders. How do you measure up the Philadelphia 76ers to the other contenders in the league?
You know what? I'm kind of like with Rob. Like, it's kind of like, it's hard to figure out, but that's a good thing, right? I mean, initially, what you want to say is you look at this roster and you say to yourself, like, this is a good roster, but I don't know if it's good enough to beat Boston. You say that, right? You say that. Like, you do think that they can beat Milwaukee just because of, I feel like this roster got better from the first game of the season. And I feel like they should have defeated Milwaukee then, right? The one thing is, I think that right now, like, guys on this roster, the reason why they make it so hard is because Nick Batum wasn't supposed to be this good. You know, Marcus Morris wasn't supposed to be the leader that he is. He wasn't supposed to be as versatile. Kelly Oubre was supposed to be a head case that nobody wanted to play with, right? Who is supposed to be jacking up threes and messing up the game. Well, all the things that people are saying about all these guys aren't happening. They're just not, right? So you look at this team, Maxey wasn't supposed to be ascending the way that he is, right? So when you look at it, you know, on paper, they're going to be the underdog. But I don't think that they need to get that superstar that everybody was saying for them to excel. I think that they have the right pieces. And another thing is, like, here's something else that we don't talk about. They all know that Joel Embiid is the man, and they all want him to be the man. In the past, if it was James Harden being passive aggressive, or it was just Ben just being Ben, like, there was always a power struggle. They don't have that. And I think that when you have a team, like, again, I'm not picking them the favorite, but when they're a team and they're gelling, it's hard to count them out if they all come to play.
Yeah, Keith, I agree with you. I love the way this sets up with these role players, man. Like, they all get it, man. It just makes a lot of sense. And I guess the question I would have is then, if you're Daryl Morey, you have a tough call to make. It appears they may be one scorer short. I don't mean someone who's got to get 20, but someone who's consistently going to get you 16-ish, because sometimes Tobias can fade in and out.
Well, let me ask both of you guys this question then, right? Since we're on that topic, when I look at Denver last year and how they won the championship, I never felt like Denver was the most talented team in the playoffs. I never felt like that, but I felt like they were the most cohesive. Mm-hmm. Do you, and Rob, you can probably incorporate this in your question. I mean, do you guys feel like, this team can get by or go get further with cohesion rather than adding more talent?
I love the way they're made up. I do. But I do worry that they're just a little bit short in terms of do anything dramatic. I don't. But I do think one more piece. But Keith, I think it's a tough call, because I know Morey has set this up where he can also have so much freedom in the offseason if he just lets it ride. You have a guess right now? I know we're only in early January as to what he'll do.
Yeah, I think that if he does something, I think it's going to be, more of on the line of a guy who is going to be, I'm not going to say a role player, like I say a role player, but a standout role player, if that makes sense. Like a guy who makes something happen, a guy who can hit shots, but a guy who can play on both sides of the ball, who can defend. The big problem that they have right now is that is in regards to going out there and getting another elite scorer is that person going to be happy with their role? You know what I mean? Is that person going to be happy? Because, I mean, you look at it, right now, Maxey, you need Maxey to continue to ascend. But if he ascends, is this person going to take shots away from Maxey? But to me, I know this sounds, and I really like Alex Caruso. I mean, I like his length. I like his toughness. I like his ability. It's funny because he's a guy that, was an undrafted dude that people didn't think was going to make it in the league, and he's gotten better. And you look at him coming off the bench and see what he's going to do. But then the problem is, if you go out there and you get an elite scorer, right? Well, what is that going to do for Kelly Oubre? What is that going to do for Marcus Morris? All these other guys who you're giving them opportunities and they show them what they can do. So to me, I love the cohesion. I mean, I do. I really do. And I think that, you look at the Detroit Pistons back in the day, they were a cohesive team. Mm-hmm. These guys they got along. They played well. They won championships. And I'm talking about the Rip Hamilton ones. And I know they were all-stars, right? But at the same time, when you look at the recent teams like that won, the Lakers and all that, they weren't on that level. So, and you look at Denver, like you said, they had the Joker, the only all-star that they had. They had good players, but the only all-star. So I think they can do it. And I'm going to tell you this, you are right. I remember when I used to cover this Sixers team that they would have team meetings and stuff like that, or guys would want to hang out together. Joel didn't show up. Ben Simmons didn't show up. It was Tobias and a bunch of role players. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now you look at it, all of them go out. They all go out and they all hang out together and they have a good time together. There's a lot of laughing and joking. And it's, to me, the thing that makes it, I guess, I'm not going to say weird, but good to watch, is from a standpoint that a lot of these guys are on expiring contracts. And when it's time to be selfish and care about self and not help out each other, this could be the time, because you're trying to extend your career. Right. But yet and still, you guys see it. They're all clapping, they're cheering, they're this and that. And I had a conversation with one of them, and I'm sorry for being long-winded.
No,
you're fine.
But I had a conversation with one of them, and he said to me, he said, Keith, look, yeah, we all want to play. We all want to get paid. But when you see something that's as special as this is right now, and we're playing with big fella who's doing all this stuff, now ain't the time to worry about self. You don't want to be this dude. You want to help this team win. So, you know what I mean? So I think that goes a long way when you have a lot of selfless players. You know what I mean?
It's so funny you say that, Keith. I mean, I've been reading your stuff and listening to you on different platforms for the past few years now, and I don't think I've heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I don't think I've heard you say that a guy on that roster, had that level of thinking or had that, or at least put things in perspective like that. Sometimes you just need the right combination of personalities in the room for things to work. But even then, money's involved. It's a business. Guys want to make sure they get theirs. But sometimes when you just see greatness happening in front of you, you got to just roll with it, because if you latch yourself onto it, somebody's going to look at you and say, hey, you were a part of that. Okay, we'll invest in you just off the sake of that. I mean, I look at this team right now, and I think Maxey is like the secret ingredient. I think Maxey's energy, along with the production and his personality, is exactly what the doctor ordered when it comes to this Philadelphia 76ers team. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so too. I still think that he has some growing to do, like ascending, like, but again, and that's not a knock on him. Like, believe me, it's just that you got to go through it. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to go through it. Like, yesterday, prime example, he was bumping the defender. He was bumping Caruso, and he said, "Look, this is how they do me. So this is what I'm gonna do." Well, he's starting to learn, because when Maxey first came here, James Harden and PJ Tucker used to get on him for being too nice. Like, he was too nice. He spoke to everyone. Now he's starting to realize, like, yo, this is real. Like, before, he had the power. He was athletic. He was this and that. But I think, he's realizing that, everybody's not out here to be nice to me. I got to be just as physical, and I have to do things. So once he goes through all that, yeah, he's going to be that guy. He's also we're going to see him fail at certain times, because people are going to blitz him. They're going to do all these different things to him. But yeah, I think he does have that. I mean, Maxey might even be the most improved player in the league this year. So he is that guy. But also, I do think the fact that if you look at Maxey and you saw some of them step back threes he did yesterday, I thought I was looking at Harden. Yep. So I think, I think that the best thing that happened to Maxey's progression as a player was the last 2 years he had under Harden. And now he has dudes like Pat Bev, Marcus Morris, these other dudes who are known to be tough guys in the league. So they're telling him, like, look, yeah, you got this stuff from James, but now you got to bring it. So I think that all this right now is helping in his maturation. And when Maxey, that's going to help Maxey become the elite player that we all think that he is going to be.
Keith, let's talk a little bit more about the big fella. What's made him better than he even was last year as the MVP?
It's crazy, isn't it, man? Yeah. It's crazy.
It don't seem real sometimes, Keith, when he's playing. And it's like his dominance is almost uncanny. Like,
yeah, I mean,
how long was that stretch for 30-plus points? What was that, 10, 12,
15 and 14. 15 for 30.
15 and 14. Yeah, it's like, whatever one you want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about the all-time great centers. Like, every Wilt Chamberlain gets a lot of, we all love Wilt, right? Wilt's from Philly. We're from Philly. We do this. But the stuff that Kareem did was phenomenal, too. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the guy. And like, the only centers who have done this is Joel Embiid, Kareem, and Wilt Chamberlain. So that just tells you what he's doing. But it's two things. I think that, well, actually, I want to say three things. I think that Joel Embiid has better teammates to fit his system in regards to they're all cutting down to the basket. He has more shooters around him. That's enabling. And then having Maxey with him is making it harder for you to double. Like you can double, but now he has people that's going to knock down shots consistently, right? I also think the fact that this is his team. There's nobody competing with him, like we said before. Like he knows that, and he's going to go out there and he's going to do what he wants. Like it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like James Harden is not trying to outshoot you. You know, Ben is not trying to pass the ball to somebody else. I think it's all about Joel. But then there's that maturation as well. Like, you know what I mean? So I think it's three things. He has better teammates. He's matured. He's, you know, he knows what moves, I mean, what plays to make. But also, you know, is also he's the unquestioned leader and he's the man. He's the man. And they all want him to be the man.
Have we ever seen a
Yeah, I thought a great example was the one that he got for the 10th assist last night. Sorry to interrupt, Tone, but like that was a great example of guys cutting and he finds them. It was just it goes right to what you're talking about, Keith.
Have we seen a Joel Embiid this good? I mean, he appears to be playing at a level that I've never seen him play before.
Nah, we haven't. And Tone, you're just a little bit younger than us.
I know. I'm 29.
Speak for yourself, man. I'm 18. Come on, Keith.
Okay, all right. Well then, let's just say our grandparents used to tell us about Dr. J and people like that.
Right.
But see, the thing, Tone, is when you thought of, like, as a kid growing up, when you thought of the 76ers, even if the 76ers weren't the best team in the league, and which was tough back then because you had the Lakers and the Celtics, you knew they had one of the best players in the league, arguably the best player in their position. Like when Doc was here, he was the best small forward in the league, right? The best one, if not the best player, right? Early. Then you have Barkley, the best power forward. You know what I mean? Like this and that. So you look at Embiid and you're like, wow, it's back to that. You know, even Iverson for a little bit, but it was later. But now it's one of those things where you're saying to yourself, like, Embiid might be the best player in the league. Mm-hmm. You know, he just might be. Like, he surpassed all these other guys. And so, no, we've never seen this. We haven't, because what the things that he's doing, and again, I have to say this has to go to Nick Nurse, because remember in the past, we would like, why is he out there shooting threes? Yep. Why isn't he driving in the lane? Why isn't he using his power? I mean, he's driving in the lane, dunking on people left and right. I mean, he is making that mid-range shot. That's like a bucket for him. But at the same time, it's not like he's standing at the three-point line, out of shape, jogging from three line to three line. Joel Embiid is imposing his will. So I think that has a lot to do with the coach. And he is the most dominant player in the league right now.
Yeah, it's been fun. I tell you what, though, Keith, for all the sort of ill will, which granted they brought on by not getting past the second round, man. Like, I think that with the Harden trade and with Nurse and having guys who just sort of get it and look like they're enjoying the game, man, it has made this fun. I know there's still a lot of people that are in the mode of, I'm not going to watch it till they play in the second round. That's fine if that's what they want to do. But this team is fun. You're missing out on a really good product so far this year.
You're exactly right. And I want to say this, and Tone, you were right. Like, I've never felt this way about this team. And I hope I'm not jinxing them or whatever, knock on wood, this whole thing. But the thing is, and you know, and Rob is right too. Like, yes, it's going to matter in the playoffs. But there's two things we're talking about. You got a bunch of guys who got traded here, don't know if they're going to be here in February or not. But they're all out there hanging together, having a good time, cheering for each other. They all talk about how they want to be here, right? You know, Nick Batum had to go through some family stuff. They supported him. You know, Kelly Oubre went through what he went through. They supported him, right? And the thing is, it's one of those things where, you know, you enjoy it because this could be an extremely stressful situation for a team. Guys not knowing if they're going to be here tomorrow or not. But whatever they're doing, they're all gelling, man. They're all playing together, and they're all supporting Joel. So that says a lot, dude, for this team. Because, you know, typically when you got a bunch of guys like this, it's time to go for self. But they're not. They're not. And I think that's has a lot to do with, you know, Nick Nurse as the coach, and it says a lot about the players who they brought in.
Yeah, I was literally about to say, Nick Nurse, you have to give credit to him. He's created this environment that these players can coexist in and not feel, I guess, this underlying pressure of, okay, are we going to get traded? Our contract situation? What's the future of this team? They can't get out of the second round. It just seemed like Nick Nurse has just brought a completely different tone or feeling around this organization. And, you know, it just seems more, I feel more optimism in the way he conducts himself and his post-game speeches to the team or in the press conferences. He just seems like a guy that's just going with the flow and just riding this wave and just maximizing whatever he has at his disposal, and just created, again, a healthy environment for these guys to coexist and play in and have fun in.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what it is. And the thing is, like, again, it goes to realizing who your stars is, realizing that what they have works. And then also, I hate to say it, he's a championship coach. So they respect that. And here's something else that we're not talking about. Like, you know, he had a relationship with Marcus Morris from when he was the Houston Rockets G League coach. Marcus, his rookie year, he had a relationship with Pat Bev the same way. So you understand what I'm saying? Like, these are guys that he has relationship with. So then you look at Pat Bev, some people might be like, well, is he hard to coach? Well, not to Nick. Nick knows him. You know, he knows him. He welcomes that. So, you know, I think he is a good coach, and they all respect it, but they all have prior relationships with him. And that's what also makes it work.
Keith, great stuff, man. Always fun catching up. You can follow Keith at Pompey on Sixers, and of course, Inquirer.com for all his work. It could be a fun one on Friday against the Knicks, man. New look.
Yeah, it
Knicks.
will be. It will be.
Yeah,
it will be. I'm looking forward to that one.
Keith, appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pompey. Appreciate you, sir.
Thanks, man. Call me Keith. Mr. Pompey is my dad. And he might say, call me Bill.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
Got you, KP. I got you, man.
Take care. Yeah, that is Keith Pompey. All right, let's get a quickie in here. Tone, when we come back, I'll update you on a couple things that Nick Sirianni had to say today, and some injury updates for the Eagles as well. Then we'll dive into our NFL segment. We didn't get to the bad part of the good and the bad and the quiet. We'll do all those things when we get back. Don't go anywhere. He's Tone DeShields. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take. All right, let's tell you about Flynn Tree Services. Yes, they're an experienced, licensed, and insured Pennsylvania tree services company that will trim or remove any unwanted trees off of your property. They're experts trimming all types of trees, and they serve southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and northern Delaware. Flynn Tree Services specializes in tree removal, stump grinding, as well as tree pruning. You can go to their Facebook or Instagram page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call, 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com. That's flynntreeservices.com.